Why do you think architecture isn't beautiful anymore?
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, obviously there'll be some things that are built now that are beautiful because that's maybe the main intention behind it. You know, like artists will sculpt things, or certain buildings will be built with an artistic intention. But maybe it's a consequence of our like greater inclination for just doing what's profitable and easier, and like we can fit X number of houses or flats in this area if we put them like this in a very uniform way. And is it maybe a sort of less greater emphasis on religion and things like this, and great sort of ritualistic communities that mean that we don't build buildings like cathedrals anymore because we have them already, and maybe they're a sort of a dying part of our society, the attendance and appreciation for buildings and things like that have a very divine connotations and things. I think it's a combination of all of those things. I don't think it's completely died. I think there's still beautiful sort of things being built out in the world, but it just seems like generally I look at things like cathedrals and it baffles me that even a human being at that time was capable of building a structure like that in the 1400s or even earlier. And there's a sense of awe when you're in these places that you just don't get in modern buildings as much, from what I gather. I mean, what do you think?
I think you're right in terms of the reason. It's because of profit and functionality is the reason why. I mean, maybe we don't need more cathedrals, and maybe it's fine the way it is now. If there was so many, then we wouldn't appreciate them. But I go into like an average hotel and I see like a picture that is like just like a shitty beach with like, it's kind of like art for art's sake just on the wall. And then you go into like a fancy restaurant where they're playing like mainstream pop music, and you're like, why can't you play like some Beethoven or some flamenco? Like, why does it have to be this this very high beat music to try and make you eat and get out as fast as possible? It's high tempo, and it's all sort of gone to efficiency. And there is exceptions. I looked into this a little bit, and there's this good example of Weatherspoons. And if you've ever been to Weatherspoons, they don't actually play music. And well, why is that? Basically, the CEO, he's a guy called Tim Martin, and he was influenced by this George Orwell essay called "The Moon Underwater," which is Orwell's depiction of like the perfect pub, and in that he says that the perfect pub shouldn't have music, which is that's quite an interesting reason, I guess. Like, there's more music, I guess it's more pure. I don't really know the reason, but that was why Weatherspoons don't have music. But I think I'm with you in that you see buildings and you're like, how did humans make that? Like, how did what's that massive? Is it like St Paul's Cathedral, that massive one in London? Yeah.
Mental.
And there's, how the fuck do humans make that? And there's also like
but multiple, like when was let's Google this. When was St Paul's built? The construction began in 1675 and was completed in 1710, so 35 years. Like 1675. That's three and a half hundred years ago of lower like innovation than we have today in terms of construction tools and just the labor industry was not. It's mental to me that there's something like that was built then. Yeah,
the same with like if you're still on Google now, Google the Cologne Cathedral. It's this massive
Cologne in Germany.
Yeah, in Germany. Yeah.
Whoa.
That shit's like out of a movie. That shit's like.
Yeah, mental.
It's incredible.
Just to go back, it literally is mad. Just to go back to your point on the hotels and music and restaurant thing, I think also an element of it is companies will they'll look to be uniform in the experience they provide people wherever they go. So if you're like a chain hotel, you will have the same decor and layout inside and outside that's kind of cheap to run. And will give people a familiar experience every time, because when they go to a travel lodge or a Holiday Inn or whatever, they know what that person then knows basically what they're going to get. If they all look different architecturally and had different interior design and stuff, there's kind of People wouldn't like that. They like the certainty of knowing where they're going when they purchase a hotel room or whatever with the chain company. And also, on the music point, I think people go with what's safest. So, like, pop music is pop music for a reason. It's pop music because it's popular, right? And even though it may not be the preference of you or I, it's still, on average, going to be what somebody doesn't mind listening to. Whereas if you played something a bit more obscure, or maybe is seen as a bit more, I don't know, old school, vintage kind of tunes, like, you're going to appeal to less people than pop music would, even though to us it would make a nicer experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think these are
kind of playing it safe.
They're like mainstream places, so they're going to be mainstream rather than niche, I guess, essentially. So yeah, I think you're right.
Exactly.
And maybe that's fine, but I can't. I just go into like a travel lodge and I'm like, what's the point of that picture being up there? Because it doesn't make me feel or think anything. It's a beach. Yeah. Like it might as well. If it wasn't there, it wouldn't change the way I think or anything. But I think that's why Europe's so like romanticized, because it has more of this like stuff that's appreciated with time. And yeah, I guess the question is that comes from this like I think as individuals we want to be surrounded with something that has a soul. Like we want to like not be kind of stuck in these like cancer states surroundings, because it just kind of I don't think if it was all around me all the time it would just kind of wouldn't make me feel good. So I think
there's actually there is I'm not fully aware of the research, but I know there is a link between urbanization and urban environments and mental health disorders and a greater risk of like anxiety and depression living in massively built up like city kind of landscapes compared to living in the countryside and being close to nature. So there is actually something to that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the obvious solution to get in nature. Like, and I think the reason that is because if you think about like the post clarity of after you've had a nature walk and after you've had a walk down cancer estate streets in like what's the shit? Yeah, there you go, Birmingham.
Like, it's hard. And what if you're born in like a poorer family? Like, you know, your family's at a lower socioeconomic status level, and moving out of the country just isn't really a possible thing because the work in your area is not good, and it's just logistically not possible. Maybe your parents you've got two, you're in a single parent family and they can't work because they've got kids to look after, and there's so many logistical circumstances that are outside of people's control that just mean that they're stuck in the environments they're in. It's really tough to. I mean, that's something that I picked up on watching Joker yesterday, the original Joker film from 2019, not the shitty new one that came out last year, because that film is about a guy going through mental health problems, but not being able to get out of the tough situation he's in. The fact he lives in a tiny like flat block in the middle of Gotham City that's so built up, and no one has this decency, like human decency about them, and the government don't give a shit about the people's welfare, and all of that. It's tough. It's tough to it's in theory it's a nice idea of like getting to nature more, but what if you're stuck in a life in a city council estate? It's just deep, man.
I think you can change the thing. You can only change the things you can control. That's a good point. But one of them would be like, instead of listening to aggressive music, like and wearing like these sloppy like tracksuits, like you can I don't know, you can adjustable things, like it's yeah, I think the Joker example is quite good. Did you like see? You kind of feel sorry for the Joker, don't you, in that movie?
Yeah, because is he the bad guy? He's like, he doesn't. Yes, he murders people throughout the film, but like every time he does, you can see why his motivations emerged. It's not like you're saying it's justified, because it's not, obviously. But you can see why. You can see the foundations of his feelings and his internal narrative emerging. You can see what leads him to do the things he does, which then raises really interesting questions about where we place blame and responsibility about things. He is a guy that is mentally unwell, but the society around him isn't recognizing that, and and doesn't know what to do about it, or maybe can't do anything about it, or isn't, the funding isn't there, or just the time and attention isn't there, and then everything just gets crazier and crazier and crazier and more chaotic out in the world than in his own head, until there's riots and he goes on and does the things he does. So that film is not about superheroes. It's not even about supervillains. It's about society, and it's about the human mind. It's a psychological thriller.
Yeah, he's kind of the antagonist and the protagonist. One thing I've been watching, there's a TV show called Adolescence, which I'm very late to. It's supposed to be like the biggest thing on Netflix this year, and that's about kind of this 13-year-old that kills a girl, and it's because of it's basically about masculinity and the problem that young people have, and all these old people are not aware of it. And it's kind of the same kind of like psychological thing of this problem hasn't been recognized and it hasn't been dealt with properly in society. So all these boys it shows like the hyper extent of a school classroom of people just not respecting the teachers at all, and then with the exaggerated sort of representation of getting mad at a girl that said something to you and killing her. And I think final thing I'd add is with the kind of controlling your surroundings, what you consume, things like that. It's I watched he said it to me like maybe a couple of weeks ago. It was Guy Ritchie on Rogan about wearing a suit like it's
wanting to wear the suit.
Yeah, you want to wear a suit like it's like a soldier wears his armor. You should wear a suit like a soldier wears his armor. And I think it's this voluntary, like, I'm going to do this so it makes me feel powerful and it makes me want to grind and be a professional. And that's it's a good way to approach life. So you've got your goal of, okay, I'm going to go to the coffee shop and get XYZ done. I'm going to drink my espresso because that's what this type of person does. Like, you drink your espresso like a sort of mafia man would drink his whiskey, and you got your suit on like a soldier wears armor. And then it all comes together into this kind of like
psychological frame. It's a narrative you place over your life.